break here of 2 weeks. Okay, so let our learning today, let that help contribute to the Torah that is being studied around the world, and the Mesiras Nefesh. And I know, Menashe, when you made the Mishabech today, you broke down, but it's a sign of all of our brokenness, that we're all feeling broken. So you really touched on something. May the Rosh Shalom be melitz on all of us, and especially the hostages and our chayalim who are on the front line. May they all be not in harm's way, and let the Rosh Shalom give us the kayach to complete what we have to do. All right, so let's start up now. We're on Mem Zayin Amid Beis, and we're by the 2 dots. It's about maybe 8 lines or so from the bottom. So we've kind of come a long way in discussing the question of ma'os, of money, whether money can complete a deal. And again, as the Mishnah told us, and as we've learned all through, is that making a kinyan on the money cannot complete the transaction. The kinyan has to be on the object of which the money is purchasing. In other words, the chayfetz, whatever it happens to be, can be a kli, it can be payros, it can be anything else. That the money itself, exchanging the money without exchanging the object, cannot finalize the deal. And that is the essence of what all of this discussion was about. And of course, we talked about chalipin and about whether money can be used for chalipin, etc. So now we're going to pick up where it says, quoting the Mishnah, Asimon Kona es hamatbeya. And the Mishnah, if you go back to Mem Daled Amud Aleph, in the progression of the different things that the Mishnah tells us can be Kona, it says an Asimon can Kona a matbeya, a coin. Now, what is an Asimon? I guess most of us, if we're remembering, the first time I heard the word Asimon, other than in a Gemara, was when I went to Eretz Yisrael and they used asimonim for the telephone. That's what I remember. An asimon was a round coin with a hole. It had no tsura. It had no picture. It wasn't like we see like a coin. And you used to drop it in the coin box when there were telephones, and that's how a call was completed. That's to me what an asimon is. And if you see from the Gemara here, that's exactly what we're talking about, because the discussion here is whether an asimon has a tsura or not. And we'll see in a minute. There's a machlokes of that. So asimon kona is a matbeya. So according to the Mishnah, an asimon is a coin, or I should say it's a coin. It's a chayfetz. It's an article that can be kona a matbeya. So now let's understand what the Gemara is about. Asimon kona matbeya. So if someone is trading an asimon for money, and you take the asimon, that's the chayfetz. That's not money, that's the chayfetz. And by taking the asimon, the money automatically transfers over to the other person. So we're not saying that asimon is money, because if it was money, we just got through saying that money is not koneh. So according to the Mishnah, asimon is not money, it is a chayfetz. Frek the Gemara, my asimon. What is an asimon? Well, very simply, what is an asimon?
Excuse me, Rabbi, I'm having trouble finding the 2 dots.
Okay.
How many lines up?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines from the top. Second word says asimon kona matbeya. Mem zayin amid beis. Mem zayin amid beis.
Okay, 8 from the top. Good.
Yeah, 8 from the top.
Okay.
You see it?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So that's an asimon. So, and that's quoting from the Mishnah. Asimon kona matbeya. So frek the Gemara, my asimon. Okay, you're telling me asimon is a chayfetz, not money. What is an asimon? Rav. So Rav defines an asimon as ma'os, money, hanisunos b'simen lebeis hamerchatz. When you go to the bathhouse and you have to pay, you pay with this coin. It's almost like, you put a coin in the machine, and then the door opens up. So
or like a subway token used to be.
Exactly, like a subway token. Exactly. So that's how Rav describes it in the parlance of the time, that when you went to a Beis HaMerchatz, when you went to the bathhouse and you wanted to go for Schwitz or whatever, then you had to buy these asimonim, and that's what you gave to the Beis HaMerchatz. That's what you gave to the fellow who was standing. I'm sure they didn't have turnstiles, but you gave it to the person who was at the Beis HaMerchatz. Okay. Frek the Gemara. Okay, that's a simple explanation. Frek the Gemara. Meisvei. I'll ask you a kasha on what you just said. Ein mechalen masasheni ala simon. There is a brisa that says, remember we talked about if you have Masa Sheni and you live Chutz La'aretz, or you live too far away from Yerushalayim, what do? You take your fruit, you sell it in the marketplace, or you sell it to whomever, you take the money to Yerushalayim, and there you buy a substitute for the peiros that you harvested that would have spoiled had you taken them to Yerushalayim. Okay, well, understand. Now, and again, we went through great detail what you're allowed to exchange that fruit, that holy fruit, the kodesh, the maser for. Says the brisa, ein mechalin maser sheni ala simon. You cannot. Mechalel means to make unholy. You can't undo the holiness of maser and put it on asimon and thereby take the asimon to Yerushalayim. That you can't do. Okay, and then in the same brisa it says, velo also you can't make it chilul almos anasinis besimin lebeis hamerchatz. You can't do it for the money that you give to the fellow who's standing guard on the beis hamerchatz to let you in. So now, what does it say? That the asimon wasn't the coin given to the guardian of the Beis HaMerchatz, because the brisa singles out asimon and the money that you give to the guardian. So you have two different coins, it says. First is the asimon, and second is the money you give to the guardian. So the asimon is not the money you give to the guardian. Rav said that asimon was, by definition, what you gave to the guardian of the Beis HaMerchatz. So you could get in, so we understand it. And the brisa says, that's not what an asimon is. Asimon is something else, and the money for the Beis HaMerchatz is something else. So it's a direct kasha on what Rav said. How do we, so we're back to the question, what is an asimon? We want to understand an asimon, and Rav gave us an answer, and the brisa says not like Rav. So again, that's the kasha. So what do we do with this? How do we understand what is an asimon if that's not what it is?
So what does money mean though in that statement? If it's not an asimon, money is made up of a bunch of asimon.
No. He's saying you can't memachalal masa sheni on an asimon, and also not on the particular money that you would give to the Beis HaMerchatz. So in other words, according to this brisa, there must be something else that you're paying your way into the Beis HaMerchatz, not what you would go out in the street and buy merchandise and everything else. So what is that something else? There is something else.
Two separate things on the table.
That's right. Two separate things on the an asimon and a particular coin, whatever it is. There is some other coin which isn't the coin of the realm, but is a coin that everybody uses to get into the Beis HaMerchatz, but it's not an asimon. So again, the Gemara is pinpointing the question. The brisa makes a chilik between an asimon and a coin that you use for the Beis HaMerchatz, and Rav got through saying that asimon is what you give to the Beis HaMerchatz. So, and that's the definition. So the Gemara says, well, I'm puzzled. What is Rav saying? The brisa seems to indicate not like Rav, and of course Rav was the gadol. So I mean, everybody. So his psak, what he said was very, very critical. And yet we see a brisa, which is a confirmation of a group. I mean, the brisa is it's not one person. The brisa is a bunch of Amaroim who were all coming together, and Rabbi Nasi, when he puts it together, says this is what the rabbim, this is what the rabbanim who were studying, this is what that's what a brisa is. A brisa is akin to a mishnah, right? But it's not published as a mishnah, but nevertheless it has that koyach. And here we see Rav is going in the face of this brisa. Okay, now so the Gemara is in a quandary. So now, here the Gemara is going to try to give a series of answers, and we're going to try to see how we can get around this particular question what it is. V'chi tema perusha k'mafaresh. Now, so the Gemara, again, we've seen this many times. The Gemara now has to give an answer to this stira. So the Gemara is going to try a number of different approaches. How do we answer the stira? The first approach is b'chi tema, if you're going to say perusha k'mafarish, that the second part of the brisa is explaining the first. The first part of the brisa says you can't be mechalel masa sheni b'dan asimon. And the second part says, and what's an asimon? Mos and asunas b'simila beis hamerchatz. So we're going to try to wiggle out of it by saying that the words money that's used for the beis hamerchatz explains what an asimon is. You hear? In other words, I'm saying something to you, and then I'm saying something else, and I'm saying, oh, by the way, what I said, the second thing I said, explains the first thing I said. So I said an asimon, and then I said money for the Beis HaMerchatz, and what I mean is that asimon is what you use for Beis HaMerchatz. That's what the Gemara wants to give us an answer. So the Gemara says, V'chi tema perusha k'mafaresh, if you're going to tell me that the second part of the brisa explains the first, v'holotana hachi. But it doesn't say the language, and I see Michael shaking his head, and he's right. The language of the brisa doesn't indicate the lo tani hachem. It doesn't say mechalel masa sheni ala simon. Okay, so in other words, look at the words. The words of the brisa says a mechalel masa sheni ala simon villo almos hanisunis. If you would take out the vav, which right away tells us a second chiddush. The lo tells us a second chiddush. If you want to be precise, and if the brisa is correct, then it wouldn't say the lo, it would use another word, or would say lo alamos. In other words, the is a barrier between the first and the second. So the Gemara tries to give an answer and says, no, that can't be right, because the lashon of the brisa itself indicates that the second can't be a pirish to the first. That's how they want to slug it up. And you want to tell me, no problem. It's a complementary lashon. That can't be. The lashon doesn't allow it, right? Right? Mechalel masa sheni ala simon. Okay, you can be mechalel masa sheni ala simon divrei Rab Doisa. These are the words of Rab Doisa, who was a Tana. V'chachamim ein mechalin. And the Chachamim say that you can't be mechalel with an asimon. V'shavin, and they agree she'ein mechalel almos and as soon as besimil lebeis hamerchatz. And they say, but they agree that for sure you can't be mechalel masa sheni with money for the beis hamerchatz. So from this machlokes, we see the same thing. We see there is a complete separation between asimon, of which there's a machlokes between Rav Dosa and the Chachamim, and money for the Beis HaMerchatz, where everybody agrees, even Rav Dosa. So this is even more support for the brisa, which is a kasha on Rav, because we see that the actual Manda Omrim, Rav Dosa, who was a Tana, and the Chachamim, the rest of the Chachamim, agreed that you can't be machalel with money, and the machlokes is only about asimon. But if asimon and money are the same thing, then no problem. The Teretz says it's not the same thing. So how do you understand Rav? Again, the kasha is on Rav. Rav says that an asimon is what we're talking about for the Beis HaMerchatz, but we see they're mutually exclusive. An asimon maybe was used for other types of in other words, it was non-monetary but used for other kinds of things in society, but not the Beis HaMerchatz. The Beis HaMerchatz had its own coin, not money and not asimon, something else.
It sounds like this brisa should have been included as part of the Gemara, rather than
a separate brisa.
Category of brisa, it really amplifies the discussion.
I remember seeing it one time, but I don't remember clearly how Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi differentiated between the Mishnahs that he quoted in Mishnayos, in other words, he was Masada the Mishnayos, and those that didn't fit into the Mishnayos became the Brises, which were contemporaneous. So there was some, again, I saw it somewhere and I don't remember exactly how Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, if someone remembers, can tell me, and I can look it up. But Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was Mesader, and then what he left out became the brises. You're saying, Jay, that this is too important.
This particular
maybe.
one really should have been in the Mishnah.
Yeah, right. This is such an important brisa that somehow it should have been included by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but it wasn't. So again, but it's no less potent than a Mishnah.
Right.
We don't say that it's secondary. It's just that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi made that decision. Okay, so he was the incisor. He was the one who made the Masada, the Mishnayos, and he made that chilek. But still, it's a powerful kasha on Rav. All of this is a kasha on Rav because Rav wants to say that they are one and the same. And we see from the Brisa and from the Machlekes of Rav Dosa and the Chachamim that they are mutually exclusive. They are not one and the same. So how do we understand it? So now we're going to come to a different approach. Elo Omer Rabbi Yochanan. This is going to be important because Rabbi Yochanan has a bar machlekes on this. Rav Shlokish, we'll see that in a minute. Elo Rabbi Yochanan ma asimon. So Rabbi Yochanan comes with a different chiddush. What is ashimon? He says pulsa. Okay, so now what is a pulsa? So Rashi mechusa tzura v'koren lo paldon. So apparently it's money, but it's money without a tzura, without a figure. So you figure, okay, we have quarters, nickels, dimes, pennies. Okay, let's say the mint printed a coin without a tzura and said, this is worth 20 cents. So you got a quarter, you have a dime. They have tzuros, right? They have pictures. And then you have a coin that is a 20-cent coin, but everybody knows it's 20 cents, but has no picture.
But it's the translation here is it's unminted.
Okay, so unminted means it doesn't have a tzura, right? Unminted, Rashi says, what is unminted? Mechusa tzura. It's missing a tzura. It's missing a tzura is an imprint. Let's call it a figure. Maybe it had a picture of the Beis HaMikdash. I don't know. It didn't have a tzura that was the normal tzura for money. I doubt that they put faces of people because that's not what we do. We don't put faces of people. We put things, right? You can put a flower. You can put anything but a tzura of a person. So you could put a chayfetz. You could say a jug of wine or a bunch of grapes. I mean, they're the kinds of things that we've seen even in Eretz Yisrael today. There's all kinds of tzuras that they use for a menorah, grapes, different kind of thing. So it's mechusat tzura, but the klal, the klal Yisrael knew it was 20 cents. It was whatever it was. So that's how he defines it. So now we have a new Metzias. It's not money. It's not an asimon. An asimon clearly looked different. Maybe it had a hole in it, like we knew the asimonim from 50 years ago when we went to Eretz Yisrael, and we had this little coin with a hole, and we put it into the telephone. I don't think the asimon was used for anything but the telephone, unless someone remembers differently. To me, I bought asimonim at the post office so I could make phone calls. I don't remember using it for anything else. But now the Gemara is being mechadish that there's something else. It's called a pulsa, and that pulsa allows me to go shopping with a coin, or no, not shopping. It allows me to go to the Beis HaMerchatz, and that's the coin that I have to give to the person standing guard at the Beis HaMerchatz. If I gave him an asimon, he would say, "No, my friend, that's not what I will take," and I didn't give him money, so I have to give him a pulsa. So Rabbi Yochanan gets around it by saying, you know what, we're going to create a new hybrid, and we're going to say that that's what we mean by a asimon. We mean a pulsa. Now, why is that an answer? Why is that an answer? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan says this because this is Rabbi Yochanan's shita. What's his shita? We already saw this because we quoted this Rabbi Yochanan in our previous Gemara. Remember, we said Rabbi Yochanan was the outlier to the rest of the Gemara, and he said to Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Doisev, Rabbi Yishmael, these two Tanoim, Rav Doisev, Rabbi Yishmael, Amru Dover Echad, that they, when they learned, they each said one thing. In other words, they came about to their conclusion, which we'll see. What are we talking about? And they said the same thing. What is that same thing? Rav Doisa had the Amrin Rav Daisa is the one who we just quoted. What did we quote? Rav Daisa is mechulak with the Chachamim, and he says mechalel masasheni al asimon, that you can be mechalel masasheni on an asimon. That's what Rav Daisa said. So we know that. What does Rabbi Shmuel say? Rabbi Shmuel Maihi. What did Rabbi Shmuel say? The Tanya we learned in a brisa, and remember, Rabbi Shmuel is a Tana, so he was part of the cadre of Chachamim who were included in the Mishnah, right? They were in the Mishnaic times, not in the Gemara, the Amoraim times. So Rav Daisa was one Tana, and he said what he said, and Rabbi Shmuel was another Tana. What did he say? The Tanya, because we learned in a brisa, this is Rabbi Shmuel, but Tzuras Hakesef Biyodcha, that the Tzura, the picture, we'll call it Tzura is the mint, or the picture, the Tzuras Hakesef Biyodcha. The Torah says that that the tzura of the kesef will be in your hand. What does it mean in your hand? So remember, let's go back. It's a pasuk in Vayikra that tells us that when Klal Yisrael was taking Maser Peres, Maser Rishon, then what's the halacha? The halacha is they could transfer that into money and take it to Yerushalayim. So what is the wording of the Torah? The Torah says v'tzarta hakesef biyodcha. V'tzarta means you can sort of tie. You can tie the kesef onto your hand, the one that you exchanged from the Maser, and take that to Yerushalayim. So the words v'tzarta, that's the drush. It says v'tzarta, Rabbi Shmuel says, because it says in the Brisa v'tzarta kesef biyodcha. Why does it say v'tzarta? Should it say v'lakachta? V'lakachta kesef biyodcha. You have to understand, when we learn, we break it down to the lowest common denominator. What's the simplest thing that we can say? Don't make it complicated. If you want to say something, the Torah tells you what to say. So the Torah should have said, "V'lokachta es hakesef." What's the word for take? V'lokachta es hakesef. Take the kesef and go up to Yerushalayim and buy the fruit and then give it in the Beis Hamikdash. All of a sudden, the Torah changes from v'lokachta to v'tzarta. V'tzarta means tie it. What are we tying? What are we talking about? You're going to tie the kesef to your hand. You have it in your hand, or you put it in a purse and you take the Yerushalayim. So the word v'tzarta must tell us something that v'lokachta doesn't tell us. That's how we learn a drash. That's the simple way to understand when you're learning something. You have to say to yourself, why is there a certain way of saying something that looks unusual? That's the first question we should always ask ourselves when we're learning, and we look at something and say, what is this? This is not the way to express ourselves. The way the Torah should express yourself is v'lakachta es hakesef. But no, the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says v'tzarta es hakesef. Says the Gemara, and this is always the way we darshan, right? This is we know this from all over Shas. V'tzarta can be l'rabos, to include kol dover hanitzra biyad. In other words, it's simple enough to say, v'lokachta, you take the money and put it in your hand and you go. No, that's not good enough. It's got to say v'tzarta, and tzarta comes to tell us that anything that you can tie to your hand and take to Yerushalayim is good enough to exchange Maser Rishon. Oh, now what does that open up? Let's think about this for a minute. If the Gemara is saying that the Torah says v'tzarta deliberately because v'lakachta wasn't simple enough, wasn't good enough, then all of a sudden it's got to be something else. Okay, what is that something else? By saying the v'tzarta, you shall tie the money. The rabbos called over hanitra biyad. It includes anything that you can tie to your hand. What does that mean? Right? That means that if you take something that isn't the normal kesef, that's okay. In other words, if you were giving me a coin and you gave me the equivalent, let's say, of a quarter, whatever it was at the time in the Beis Hamikdash, and you gave me that coin, I take that coin and I do it. That's v'lakachta. That's the simple word v'lakachta. But that Torah is telling us that's not enough. It's v'tzarta. So now our mind has to sort of scan the horizon. What's v'tzarta? What is v'tzarta telling us that v'lakachta isn't telling us?
Well, you could take diamonds, maybe.
What's that?
You bring diamonds. It's not money.
Right, right. No, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, it's any kind of precious gems. Precious gems and money both have the advantage that a handheld thing can be worth a lot, as opposed to saying I'm going to exchange the produce for lumber or something. Well, you couldn't carry the equivalent amount of stuff in your hand.
Right. So you hit it on the head. So Rabbi Shmuel now says that includes a coin that doesn't have a tzura. It doesn't mean just money. It means pulsa. What is pulsa? Pulsa is a coin, but it doesn't have a tzura. So Rabbi Shmuel is giving us a proof that a coin without a tzura is included because it says v'tzarta. You hit it on the head. It doesn't have to be a diamond or silver or something else. It can be.
So he broadened the definition.
He's broadening the definition. Now, you're giving me the right answer by saying, oh, a piece of silver, a piece of gold, a diamond, a sapphire, all of those things, yes, but also a pulsa, a coin, which is not money. Otherwise, it would say v'lakachta, but it's included because it has the value of money, but it's not money. So why do we say that? Because we bring down that Rav Dosa and Rabbi Shmuel are saying the same thing. What are they saying? That a coin that's used, an asimon, Rav Dosa says asimon, an asimon that's used for the berchatz is okay. And Rabbi Shmuel says v'tzarta means more than just money. It means something else that can be used for the berchatz. What is that? Pulsa. So Rabbi Yochanan is enlarging the definition, and he's bringing a raya from two Tanoim who each use a different lashon but say the same thing. What do they say? They say that a coin that is not normal money, it's not a quarter, it's not a dime, it's not whatever the coin of the realm was at the time, it's not that, it's something else. So Rabbi Dosa calls that something else an asimon, and Rabbi Shmuel calls it whatever, a pulsa, like Rabbi Yochanan does. So Rabbi Yochanan wants to bring a raya that when he says pulsa, that's what the Tanoim mean, because both Rabbi Dosa and Rabbi Shmuel in their own way are saying that an asimon, i.e. pulsa, i.e. a coin without a tzura, because asimon also doesn't have a tzura. So a coin without a tzura that has value but is not money, that's pshat v'tzarta es hakesef. That means you can use that, tie that to your hand, and then go to Yerushalayim and make an exchange.
Could they also have used an IOU note, something written on a piece of paper?
Well, again, it's interesting whether or not they use notes, because the Gemara doesn't even discuss. The Gemara is talking about chafetzim, in other words, not paper. But it's an interesting question. I mean, did they even use notes in those times? Again, we have to go back and see whether or not a piece of paper, an IOU, a piece of paper, was considered v'tzarta es hakesef. Kesef denotes something hard, something mamashistic, right? Not just paper. So we'll have to hold that in a minute. But
Rabbi, it's. I mean, the Brisa said you can't use an asimon, but if in your example earlier, if an asimon had a hole in it, you could tie it around your finger and then you could use it. So that contradicts the Brisa.
Maybe so. I don't know if the asimon that we call an asimon today in modern Hebrew, whether that's what they refer to. Because for today, nobody uses those asimonim. So, is there such a thing as an asimon in Israel or in Lashon Kodesh? I mean, it's still, the Gemara uses it because that was a coin at the time, and I think modern Hebrew adopted it as a coin without a tzura, and so they say, oh, we're going to create a coin that can be used in society, but it isn't money. Let's call it an asimon. It harkens back to the time of the Mishnah. Okay, it was a very noble thing they did, and they created an asimon. Do I know whether an asimon looked like that in the time of the Mishnah? Probably not, but who knows? Maybe it had a hole in it. We don't know. Yeah, but the point is that he's saying that that both Rav Dosa and Rabbi Shmuel are coming to the same conclusion by using different words. Rav Dosa uses asimon, and Rabbi Shmuel doesn't use the term asimon. He says that it is a coin that doesn't have a tzura, which Rabbi Yochanan defined as pulsa. Rabbi Yochanan said, Maya Simon pulsa. And Rabbi Shmuel is supporting Rabbi Yochanan by saying, yes, that pulsa is exactly the coin that was used when the Torah says Vitzarta. So we're coming to the same conclusion.
But wouldn't that indicate that a pulsa and an asimon are different things?
No, they're the same, because both Rav Dosa and Rabbi Shmuel are coming to the same conclusion. You can use this coin in the merchatz, except Rav Dosa calls it an asimon, and Rabbi Shmuel calls it a pulsa. So Rabbi Yochanan says that's a pulsa. An asimon is a pulsa, because they're saying the same thing with a different. They're denoting the coin with a different name, but it's the same coin, a non-monetary coin that doesn't have a tzura. Rav Dosa happens to call it an asimon, and Rabbi Shmuel calls it pulsa, but they are the same thing. So that's why Rabbi Yochanan says, you know what? It's not a machlokes. It's not a machlokes. Rav was right, because he said an asimon, and an asimon, and that which you gave to the merchatz, the pulsa, are really the same thing. So in other words, we're trying to answer Rav. We're trying to make Rav whole, that Rav wasn't wrong when he said asimon, even though the Brisa seems to say that asimon and whatever the second thing is, are for the Beis HaMerchatz are mutually exclusive. Comes Rabbi Yochanan and he says, no, that the definition of an asimon is a coin without a tzura, and the coin that was given to the Beis HaMerchatz was a coin without a tzura. So what are you going to call it? A pulsa, an asimon. In other words, there may be a number of names for the same coin, but Rav wasn't wrong when he called it an asimon, which you give to the bathhouse guardian. That's how we understand this Gemara. That's how Rabbi Yochanan is trying to emphasize Rav, that Rav is correct, even though he said it, and even though the Brisa seems to indicate that there are two coins. They're not really two coins. They are. It's the interpretation. It's the same coin called by two different names, because you see Rav Dosa called it one name and Rabbi Shmuel called it another name, but we're saying that they're both right. They're both the same. So that's how we have to understand it, Michael. It has to be two coins, same, different names, same coin. And that's what Rav meant when he said an asimon, which is used for the merchatz. Yeah, Menashe.
Okay, so a couple things. So Jay spoke out and he gave the example diamonds, and I agree, because I was thinking the same thing. And in particular, where I was going to get to is there are several different ways this idea of tsarta could go. One would be to say it adds additional coin-like items that, let's say don't have a tzura, that aren't used in regular commerce. They have a specific use like the merchatz or like the telephone, and that gets included. And that seems to be what we're saying. It can be extended in a number of different ways, and I wonder whether the Gemara at some point discusses it. Diamonds and other sapphire and so on being an extreme, because there it's something where with a regular coin, and this certainly used to be the case because coins would wear out and you didn't have, there are a lot of things, particularly if it has a tzura, to make sure that a coin is close to the whole value, you could go ahead and say, oh, these are all silver, or these are all gold, or these are all copper, and weigh them against a standard weight to see, do all these nickels add up to $1? Because it's chipped and rubbed and this and that, maybe you need 21 of them instead of 20 of them to make $1. And so a question as to whether that might extend here, and in particular, something without a tzura is more subject to abuse, because you can't look at it as easily and say, oh, it's not quite whole because the nose of the president is chopped off because it's just a blob of metal. And then the extreme would be like, it would be precious gems, because there they don't necessarily, they have an inherent value. They are valuable, everybody agrees, but the value depends on the quality and the size and maybe the provenance and so on, whereas a coin in the end was simply how much silver or gold or copper does it have by weight, and that's it.
Right. No, I think, but now my thought is this, and Jay, both of you said, oh, you're thinking of what about diamonds or maybe other coins. L'chaira, from our discussion here, we have to take away that v'tzartas hakesef is limited to what we call kesef, to what we call money. Diamonds as a chayfetz was not money. It had value, and people may have exchanged diamonds for other things. But when it comes to Masa Sheni, to Masa Peres, Masa Sheni, diamonds doesn't cut it, because v'tzartas hakesef means it means a coin. So a coin, you typically think of a coin with a tsura. Comes Rav, and he says that both Rav Dosa and Rabbi Shmuel are teaching us a chiddush, because it doesn't say v'lakachta es hakesef. Kesef means money, not a chayfetz. It doesn't say v'lakachta es hakesef. It says v'tzarta es hakesef. That v'tzarta comes to include a coin that doesn't have a tzura. Let's take a look at the Rashi, because that'll make it a little bit clear. The Rashi in the 4 down from the narrow lines in the top, V'oz Rabbi Yochanan Tamei, and Rabbi Yochanan follows his own shita, Medeukel Rabbi Shmuel. Since we said Rabbi Shmuel the Polik, he's Polik, he makes a differentiation. Al kol davar she'ein lo tzura lahatir chilul olav, to allow chilul maser sheni, maser rishon, all kinds of masros for a coin without a tzura, the Amma Rav Dosa, that he's saying the same thing as Rav Dosa. Ashmein and Rabbi Yochanan, the Asimon, the Rav Dosa. So Rabbi Yochanan concludes that the Asimon that Rav Dosa says may be used, Dover she'enol of tzurahu, is a coin without a tzura, which is the same thing Rabbi Shmuel is saying, which is why we came to the conclusion that Rav Dosa and Rabbi Shmuel are saying the same thing, and therefore an Asimon is the same as a pulsa, so therefore Rav is okay. That's the conclusion. But to your points now that you just both made, well, V'tzarta can include now diamonds or other chafetzim, l'chara not, because it says V'tzarta es hakesef, and the definition of kesef is a coin of the realm without a tzura. So now we have a dilemma, because if I wanted to change my maser for a handful of diamonds, which are clearly worth a lot, I can't do it, because the Torah says v'tzartas hakesef. Even in a broad definition of kesef, the machlokes that the Rishonim had, or there was a general machlokes, is whether or not only a coin that is the adopted coin of the realm, which we said in the Gemara that we learned before is kesef, is silver, right? Remember we said it wasn't zav, it was kesef. So kesef is silver, so that the only thing that you can exchange maser for is silver, because that's kesef. No, so we said, no, we're going to enlarge the term kesef. We're not going to say it means just silver. We're going to say v'tzartas hakesef, that any kind of kesef that can be used in the commerce is okay. When you go to the bathhouse, you got to pay, but you're not paying with a silver coin. You're paying with an asimon or a pulsa, a coin without a picture. That's not kesef. No, it is kesef, because we're including anything that has value in the realm of kesef. But that doesn't include a chayfetz, a diamond, or someone said before, a piece of wood that's carved into something fancy that has maybe worth a lot of money. No, that's not kesef. That's a very nice thing, but that's not kesef. You can't take that carving and go to Yerushalayim and sell the carving. Someone will definitely want to buy a beautiful carving and give you money and buy Masa Sheni. Can't do that, because the Torah says v'tzartas hakesef. So we've now limited ourselves, at least in the scope of what we're discussing, that what you think has great value more than money can't be used to make chal to make chilul for Masa Sheni. That's not what the Torah meant. The Torah meant you got to go to exchange it for money. Now we enlarged the definition of money, but we didn't include the world. We didn't say anything that has value can be used. So l'chayra, what you're thinking is of great value doesn't qualify. So that's what we're holding. I mean, that's the chiddush here, that it has to be silver, but it's not silver because we can find something other than silver that's considered money. Now, again, in the barter world, of course, they exchange diamonds for produce and everything else. But when it comes to be michalal maser rishon, maser sheni, you can't just use anything that would be included in barter. You have to include only kesef. And the definition of kesef we've now enlarged, as we see in this discussion of the Gemara. The Brisa says that coins that don't have a tsura, which otherwise, they're not in the normal flow of commerce, are considered kesef, and we can use them to be mechala masa sheni. Very specifically, only that, not what you think. Go ahead, Jay.
But in effect, this asimon that doesn't have regular coinage value,
right,
because it doesn't have an official stamp,
right,
that's also bartering. If you're bartering something that looks like a coin and it's used for commerce, why should the asimon be considered kesef?
That's the chiddush. That's what Betzarta comes. In other words, we're not going to allow chalipin. We're not going to allow anything that has value that you can make chalipin, like we've learned in the Gemara for the last three amudim. Well, we said chalipin; it's perfectly fine. Use anything else. This chiddush comes to tell us from Asimon that we're limiting ourselves to only something that can be called kesef. And your question is, what about a coin without a tzura? That's the chiddush of Betzarta. It should have said v'lokachtas
kesef, silver,
right? V'lokachtas kesef.
But the asimon could have been made out of zinc and lead, like the actual asimon for the coinage. And telephones were not made out of silver.
And that's the chiddush, that you can use an asimon even if it's not silver. That's exactly the point. We would have a minute you can only use silver, because silver was what was used as the medium for money. Comes the chid, that would have been on the face of it, period, nothing else. Comes the Torah and tells us Betzarta kesef, and why Betzarta? So the Tanoim came back and said there must be a reason why the Torah said Betzarta. So they came up with the chiddush that Betzarta means anything that can be used as a coin, even if it isn't kesef, even if it doesn't have a tsura. In their view, that's how they were machlit. That's how they came to a conclusion that was okay. But a chayfetz, diamonds, worth much more than a coin without a tsura. Clearly, but that's not good enough. That's not good enough. It has to be a coin, not a silver coin, but a coin. Doesn't have to have a tsura, but it has to have a certain value. And in this case, both Rab Dosa and Rabbi Shmuel are saying that particular coin was used as money to get into the Beis HaMerchatz. Therefore, it's money. Because the Beis HaMerchatz, if you gave them a fistful of diamonds, they wouldn't let you in. L'chayra, maybe. I mean, we're saying that they wouldn't, because that's not money. Why should they take diamonds? They said specifically, we want to take, this is what we're going to take to allow you to come into the Beis HaMerchatz. And that became money, what?
In effect, they're saying you can barter for this particular
but that's not considered barter. That's the point. It's considered
saying,
but barter would be diamonds, stones, other items, something
but it looks like a barter just because everybody agreed you can use it for barter and it has some value which they define. It didn't have any inherent value like so many ounces of silver. So it was an agreement that the asimon, we're going to allow that to be used for bartering and transfers and so on.
I have another theory.
It wasn't kesef. It's a long way from the original intent.
And the reason why it's a long way is because the Torah enlarged the tent to include by Betzarta, to include something that doesn't quite look like the coin of the realm, i.e. silver, but still is a coin, but it's not a chayfetz. It's not
It's
something.
Only one thing that the Torah basically is including, something that you manufacture and call an asimon or call it whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly right. That's how the Tanoim interpreted Betzarta. Yeah, Menashe, go ahead.
Yeah, in a sense, this might also, I don't know how the bathhouses work, assuming that they were indeed private institutions. In a sense, this was almost like a private coinage perhaps. In other words, they get together, all the bathhouses in the city say, okay, we're going to charge, right now we're going to charge $1. Maybe with inflation, next to the water company raises the cost, we're going to call it $1.25. Whatever it is, to make it easier for everyone, and so that our gatekeepers don't have to worry about being robbed because they have a whole bunch of money on hand. And that's a real issue. You see with the subways and things like that, used to be a problem. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to get these special faceless coins made up. They may have relatively little inherent value, but we're going to value them by making them across the city worth $1. And so you'll have a place, a bank or whatever, where you could go and trade in and give $10 and get 10 coins, and now you're set for the next 10 days of baths. And everybody would know whichever bathhouse they go to, based on
what you're saying is that this coin has no effective value to anything else you want to buy unless you go to the bathhouse.
Right. In other words, so it becomes a bathhouse coin.
No,
so it's like a coin. It's a round piece of metal. Its inherent value of silver is probably lower, let's say, than the dollar that it's being. That is my theory. Just like a subway token, it wouldn't have it wouldn't have the inherent. Now our coins in general don't, but it wouldn't have the same inherent value. But the idea is it's exchanged back and forth to have that specific value to get a phone call, a subway ride, a bathhouse in different eras, and but functionally, it's just like a coin. You can hold it in your hand. You can put a bunch of them in your pocket. You hand them on over when you need it, and everybody knows exactly what it is.
Right.
So in a sense, a private coin.
So to your point, if I run out of money and I want to go to the grocery and I want to buy something at the grocery and all I have is an asimon, which can only be used to the merchats, but everybody knows it's worth $1.
Right. So the cashier says,
I don't have any money.
Right.
I don't have any kesef, but I have an asimon. I want to buy a couple tomatoes. Here's the asimon. You're going to be able to use this because you go to the bathhouse. So take my asimon instead of kesef. And everybody says, sure. It's not normally used for buying tomatoes or vegetables.
It becomes halfway between barter and a regular coin.
Exactly right. So that is what we're saying is tsura, is v'tzartas hakesef, is that you can take something that doesn't look like any other coin, and you can use that because it's still kesef, because like we say, it can still flow into the economy as a kesef, but don't bother me with diamonds and other things that have great value that aren't by definition kesef. That's exactly right. That's exactly what we're saying. Now, let's just finish the last line, because the last line is going to sort of blow us all away from everything we've said, because we've given a terrific understanding of the machlokes of Rabbi Dosa and Rabbi Yishmael in Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says pulsa. So now everything is totally fine. So now let's look just one line more. Fine, all good. Now, the last couple of words before the two dots. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Rabbi Akiva, he disputes Rabbi Yishmael. What does he say? No, v'tzarta is l'rabos kol dover sheyesh alof tzura. Rabbi Yishmael says, no, Rabbi Yishmael, I don't agree with you that v'tzarta enlarges the flow of money, that money can be an asimon. No, I disagree with you. It has to be, you know what money is? Anything with a tzura. I don't care what it's made of, silver, zinc, whatever. It has a tzura, that's money. So you see that even in the time of the Tanoim, we thought, okay, we're going to answer Rab, because Rab Dosa, the Tana, and Rabbi Yishmael, the Tana, all say that asimon, pulsa, whatever you want to call it, is a coin of the realm and therefore can be used without a tzura. Rabbi Akiva says, not so fast. My definition of v'tzartas hakesef is any coin that has a tzura, meaning not just silver. Remember, we said that silver was the normal coin that everybody used. Says Rabbi Akiva, it can be a gold coin, it can be a silver coin, it can be a copper coin, it can be any coin, but it has to have a tzura, it has to have a picture. That makes it a coin.
So it has
Without a
to be
tzura,
on a
it's not a coin, and you can't use it. So we're left now with a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Doisa. And according to Rabbi Akiva's interpretation, Rav is on the hot seat, because what does Rav mean by an asimon? Rav is talking about an asimon, which is a pictureless coin, and Rabbi Akiva says no, it can't be. So we're left now with this machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the other Tanoim who are defining what an asimon is. Yeah, go ahead.
Rabbi Akiva is finally saying, look, you need a standard coin of the society, manufactured by the government, and it's a standard that doesn't change.
Right.
It has a picture on it, and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't look like any blank thing.
Right. So here the Gemara took a half.
I wonder why he took that position, that you should really have a standard recognized coins issued by the government, maybe to prevent counterfeiting or who knows what.
I mean, I'm looking at
But
Rashi.
it might just be getting it from the word Vitsarta Tsura. I mean, it could be as simple as that.
Exactly right. Vitsarta is the shoresh is Tsura. Tsura, that's exactly right. It's a Tsura. Now, Rabbi Doisa, Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Yochanan, all of them, all of them said, wait a minute, there's something inherent in the Torah telling us Vitsarta that is more than the Lakachta. And Rabbi Akiva, he doesn't mince words. He says, yeah, it could have said Velokachta. It says Vitsarta, but Sarta still is a Tzura. Exactly what you just said, Menashe. In other words, don't mislead me by telling him because it says Vitsarta, not Velokachta, you're going to make all these, you're going to darshan what we've been saying here for the last half an Amud. It means this, it means this, it means all these things by another name. No, Vitsarta is Vitsarta. It's a coin. Now, the chiddush in Rabbi Akiva is it doesn't have to be a silver coin, because the lokachta es kesef would mean you have to take a silver coin, which is the coin that everybody uses, and that's what you can exchange Masa Sheni and go to Yerushalayim, period. Comes Rabbi Akiva and says, you know what? It doesn't have to be a silver coin. It just has to be a minted coin. Vitsarta. That's his pshat. Rav Dosa, Rav Yishmael say, no, it doesn't have to be a silver coin. It doesn't have to be a minted coin. It can be a coin without a tsura that has a purpose, because the bathhouse will take it, i.e. it's money. It may not be the money that you would use in the normal commerce, but that's the Torah telling us you don't have to use just regular money. You can use vitsarta. And that's exactly the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva. You hit it on the nose. Vitsarta is a tsura, and they say Vitsarta doesn't mean tsura. It means something other than the regular coin.
Any single purpose item, coin, whatever.
Yeah.
That had a single purpose that everybody agreed to.
Yeah.
Is okay. That's what
that's basically what they're saying, right? And since everybody agrees that an asimon can be used for the bathhouse, that makes it money in its own sense. And again, I said before, even in our time, if I had an asimon and I went to a store, and an asimon can only be used for telephones, right? But it cost a shekel, let's just say. I bought my asimon for a shekel, and I went to the storekeeper and I said, do me a favor, I don't have any money, but I want to buy this item for a shekel. Will you take an asimon? I would say more or less they would take it. Yes. Why shouldn't they take it? They know the asimon has a worth of a shekel. If they went to the post office, maybe the post office would trade it back for a shekel. Let's just say. I know the post office today, if I bought stamps of a different denomination, which I did, and I don't use that anymore because I bought it for a package, and I went to the post office, I said to the post office, could you do me a favor? I don't need a dollar stamp or a 50. I need forever stamps. They refused to exchange it. The post office said, we can't exchange into another stamp. I said, it's a totally fresh stamp. You see, it was never used. I bought it by mistake because I was using it for a package. And they told me, sorry. So now I'm stuck with stamps unless I use it for a package. I have this $4, $5 worth of stamps that I don't need because I barely use it. that's the halacha. The halacha is you can't change it. So now I'm sure in Klal Yisrael maybe they didn't have that hakbada that they said you bought an asimon, tough luck. It's only good for the telephone. You can't use it for anything else. I dare say that they would take it for money. Okay, that's my view. But the point is that this machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the other Tanoim surrounds the word vitzarta. That the shita of all these other Tanoim is vitzarta comes to include something larger than just the regular money, because it doesn't say velakachta. And Rabbi Akiva says, yes, it includes something larger than kesef. It includes other coins, gold, copper, everything else, but the tsura still has to be there. And the others say, no, you don't need a tsura. And that's now the machlokes in our Gemara. That's how we're going to leave it here. That's the machlokes as to what is an asimon. Is an asimon okay even without a tsura? Or according to Rabbi Akiva, it has to have a tsura, but doesn't have to be silver. And I see that there's no Rashi on this, but that is now how we boil down the machlokes in this Gemara. So it's fascinating. Again, back in the time, again, maybe most of them it seems like most of the Tanoim there wanted to make it easy for someone to be able to sell his fruit and go up to Yerushalayim and with an exchange and buy it, because otherwise it's going to spoil. Rabbi Akiva seemed to have more of being more makbid. He was more particular as to how you can make the exchange. The others said, what difference does it make? It's all money in the larger sense, and we want this fellow to be able to go to Yerushalayim and bring the fruit to Yerushalayim. Why not let him do it with something else that we call a coin through Vitzarta? It's a fascinating machlokes, but again, it takes us into a point in time when, and again, we can sort of draw the parallel to our time here, because we had this asimon or any other coin, a token, like you said, a token, or any other coin that wasn't traditional money but was money. It's all money. It's all money. The question is, will someone be nice enough to say, "I'll take your token because I know it's money, and I'll buy the fruit"? That's really what we also have
today. We also have a minted to redeem a son to give to the Kohen. They mint a special coins.
Yeah, but there it said specifically that it was right, but it was specific in the case of a pidyon haben that it had to be 3 silver coins with a tzura. So there we were mamish like rochel bitcha haktana. It was specific to just this kind of coin. You may have a coin that's worth more than the coin for the kohen, but that's okay, because the Torah said you have to give him 3 silver coins with a tzura.
So the pidyon haben coins could also be used for commerce if somebody will take them.
Which ones? The
pidyon haben coins, the 3 of them.
Yeah, no, for sure. The pidyon haben coins were the normal flow. They were kesef and they had a tzura. That's the prototypical coin, and that's why for the kohen in a pidyon haben we said let's not find heterim. Let's just give him what is the normal coin in the realm, a silver coin with a tzura. That's it, and that's why we're limited to a silver coin with a tzura, right? I mean, that's all you can use. You can't use anything else. But for everything else, v'tzartas hakesef, this is intrinsically the machlokes between these Tanoim. When the Torah said v'tzarta instead of velakachta, what did they mean? Did they mean another coin with a tzura like Rabbi Akiva? Or did they mean, no, it doesn't have a tzura, just to have a value of a coin, a simon, pulsa, whatever. And that's the machlokes that we're left with, machlokes Tanoim. Again, it's a fascinating understanding of what of these gedolim, I mean, they were giants, what their interpretation of the Torah was. You and I would be looking at the Torah, we'd say, lakachta, vitzarta, okay, what are we talking about here? But they had the insight, the Ruach HaKodesh. In any event, listen, this is what Torah is. And in the schus of this Torah, we'll go back to our Inyana Diyoma. Let this be a tremendous schus, our learning, all of the learning, to understand the Torah HaKadosha. What I said at the beginning, which is from the Rosh Yeshiva, who said that the Torah is a metzias. The Torah is a personality. The Torah has feelings. The Torah has a regesh. It's like you and I. We should be good to be nice to each other. We shouldn't say things to each other. Lashon hara, all these other things that go between Adam lachavero. Torah is a person. Shabbos is a person. It's a personality. And in the schus of Torah, that we honor the Torah, we study the Torah, learn the Torah. May we hope that the coming days and weeks, the Rebbeinu Shalom will give us, all of Klal Yisrael, the benefit of Rachmim. In this week's parsha, it starts off Bereshis bara Elokim. Elokim is Midas Hadin. So the Chazal asked, the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world with Midas Hadin. So there's no wiggle room. There's no wiggle room. The teretz is that a little bit later, the Torah uses the bara Hashem as olam. It right away countered the Midas Hadin of Elokim with bara Hashem, that the Shem is the Shem Rachamim, so that the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't mean Midas Hadin. Those who interpret that it started off with Midas Hadin, which is why we have the Mabul, because the Midas Hadin took place first, so the Rebbeinu Shalom couldn't take it back. Kaviyachal, of course he could, but he said Midas Hadin. Therefore, the world was destroyed in the Mabul because it was Midas Hadin. But the Rebbeinu Shalom then said afterwards, after the Noach, after the flood, which we'll read this week, he said, I will never do that again, because he said in Bereshis, Bora Hashem es Hashemayim ves haaretz. The Rebbeinu Shalom, Hashem created the Shemayim v'Haaretz. What's Hashem? Midas Harachamim. So that the rest of the world, other than the Dora Mabul, that first very dark event of the Mabul, was replaced with Rachamim, because Rebbeinu Shalom saw you can't govern a world with Midas Hadin, Kaviyachal. You have to have. If Adam was a perfect person, we would have Midas Hadin, we wouldn't worry. But after the Ma'aseh of Gan Eden, we no longer were the perfect people. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, how can the Malachim, how can the Rebbeinu Shalom, how can you govern a world Midas Hadin when you saw the very first person you created, Adam Arishan, right away committed a chet, he's no longer Midas Hadin. You can't deal with him in Midas Hadin. That's why Pshat is we have Midas Harachamim. And we beseech the Rebbeinu Shalom through Midas Harachamim that he should have Rachmanis on Klal Yisrael. And we hope, Mitzvah Shem, when we learn next week, next Sunday, that we'll have Psuras Taivish. If Mashiach hasn't come, at least we have a Yeshua, but we have a Yeshua with Rachamim. That the Rebbeinu Shalom will keep us all safe, especially all those on the front line, our Nebuchadnezzar hostages and our soldiers, and all of Klal Yisrael. So the week to come, let us continue to daven and do all the things that, I said to my wife when I came home, I said, look, we all lived lives. I mean, never, ever said Avinu Malkeinu on Shabbos, except for Nila. And Nila is a different parsha. It's not even the Shabbos. It's Nila Sachar. To say Avinu Malkeinu on Shabbos, it never entered our minds. And today we have a psak that's exactly, we have to break the Shabbos and say Avinu Malkeinu, which everything in Avinu Malkeinu, it goes against what we think of. But nevertheless, when you read the Avinu Malkeinu, you see how appropriate our beseeching the Rebbeinu Shalom is to keep our soldiers safe, to keep our people safe, and to help fight the enemy. It's exactly what Avinu Malkeinu tells us. The Rebbeinu Shalom is the general of the Milchama. So we hope that with all the tefillas and the learning and the tilim and everything that we can humanly do, that the Rebbeinu Shalom will give us that koyach. May we all continue to do our little part, and hopefully the Torah we learned today will be a little part of it. Mitzvah Shem, knowing that we're going to learn again in the future, the Rebbeinu Shalom will treat us with rachamim for all of Klal Yisrael.
Amen.
Thank you very much. It was again, I missed learning for the last few weeks. I'm glad we're back, and hopefully Mitzvah Shem will continue next week.